Ever find yourself in the produce aisle, like really strategizing, weighing if those mangoes are about to go bad or if you've stumbled on a total steal?
Uh-huh.
Turns out that's just a taste of what a fruit and vegetable shop manager contends with every single day.
Right.
And lucky for us, we have RoleCatcher, this career development platform, and we're going deep into their insights to uncover what this role is really all about. And it's more complex than you might think.
Yeah. I mean, it's way more than just, having a green thumb. We're talking leadership, business smarts, even a bit of psychology, figuring out what your customers are really craving.
Absolutely. And RoleCatcher breaks it all down, from career guides to interview prep, the whole 9 yards. But what really struck me was how much more there is to this job than meets the eye.
For sure.
So let's ditch that checkout line image and talk about what these managers actually do.
Okay, so their what they do section, it's eye-opening. It's a real balancing act, right?
Mhm.
From super meticulous inventory, got to keep in mind, we're dealing with stuff that can go bad fast, to managing a team and making sure the customer experience is so good that people keep coming back for more.
It's like orchestrating this whole symphony of freshness, but with like razor thin margins, maybe a demanding supplier thrown in for good measure.
Totally.
And that's where those unexpected skills come into play, right?
Yeah, absolutely. RoleCatcher talks about this blend of hard and soft skills. It's fascinating. Like one example, their functions and core abilities section. Sure, you got to know your produce, but you also have to know how to negotiate to get the best price on that produce.
Oh, for sure.
Imagine going head to head with like a seasoned farmer to get the best yield of the season. We're talking next level negotiation.
Right. And that probably takes a totally different approach than convincing your friend to order takeout instead of cooking.
Oh, 100%.
So it's not just what you're negotiating, but also who you're dealing with, which adds a whole other layer of complexity.
Exactly. And that's where those soft skills are key. Building rapport, understanding what makes people tick, knowing when to push and when to back off.
It's a dance.
It really is.
Yeah.
You got to secure the freshest produce while keeping those supplier relationships strong.
Speaking of relationships, what about the whole customer interaction side of things? I mean, we've all had those moments where the person behind the counter just knows, recommends the perfect avocado, like magic.
Right.
Is that just luck, or is there some method to that produce magic?
That, my friend, is the art of customer service, and it's a huge part of this role. RoleCatcher really emphasizes this in their work environment. And typical interaction sections, you got to read your customers, understand their needs, even anticipate what they're looking for.
So it's not just knowing where the organic kale is, but maybe being able to recommend an amazing kale salad recipe or suggesting a different green if the kale's looking a little sad. That takes some serious product knowledge. Oh, absolutely. And empathy. You got to remember, you're dealing with people who are passionate about their fruits and veggies. RoleCatcher even highlights this in their interview prep section with questions like, how would you handle a customer complaining about a bruised apple? It's about turning a potentially bad experience into a good one.
It's like being a produce therapist, calming anxieties over wilted lettuce, guiding people to the ripest cantaloupe.
Uh-huh.
Who knew? But this got me thinking, is this a one-size-fits-all kind of role, or is there actually room to grow in the world of fruits and veggies?
Well, that's where RoleCatcher's fruit and vegetable shop manager, career stages section comes in. They lay out this whole career ladder, starting from entry level and going all the way up to like overseeing a whole empire of produce havens.
So you're telling me the person at my local store who always recommends the perfect avocado that could be a produce mogul in the making?
Exactly. Maybe they started as a sales associate, learning the ropes, figuring out how to build that perfect pyramid display of fruit.
But RoleCatcher shows how those skills can evolve.
Mm.
Like, imagine becoming an assistant shop manager. Suddenly you're training new hires, digging into sales data to figure out what the next big seller is going to be.
Oh, wow.
It's a whole different ballgame.
Talk about pressure. If you misjudge the demand for pomegranates, your whole week could be thrown off.
Totally.
So what happens when you reach, like, the peak of produce paradise?
You're talking about the shop manager level.
Yeah.
That's where you're really in the zone with strategic thinking.
Yeah.
You're not just meeting demand at that point, you're shaping it. RoleCatcher highlights things like developing business strategies, analyzing seasonal trends to make sure you're maximizing profits, and of course, always nurturing those supplier relationships.
So you're basically the CEO of Kale.
Pretty much.
Sign me up. But wait, there's more, right? RoleCatcher mentioned a senior shop manager. What's that all about?
Now that's where things get really interesting. Imagine you're overseeing multiple locations, each with its own microclimate of what customers want and all those logistical challenges.
Oh, yeah.
RoleCatcher's example profiles for this stage, they mention things like advanced degrees, specialized certifications. These are people at the top of their game,
Yeah.
making sure that whole network of fresh produce is running smoothly. From stocking shelves to strategizing across a whole chain of stores, it's a whole other level. But it makes you wonder, with all the technology changing things these days, is there a place for AI in the produce aisle?
Mm.
Like, can an algorithm really replace that human touch when it comes to picking out the perfect melon?
That's an interesting question. And actually, RoleCatcher mentioned something like this in their RoleCatcher Your Competitive Edge section.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they were saying that while AI probably won't be replacing those, skilled hands picking out your avocados anytime soon,
Right.
it is changing how people are actually finding jobs in this field.
Okay, so how does that work? How does AI fit into managing a fruit and veggie shop?
Well, imagine, like, instead of having to go through tons of resumes,
Right.
a manager can use these AI tools to find candidates who have the right experience.
Even predict how well they'll do based on their past performance, from other jobs.
So it's like matchmaking, but for the job market. Instead of like swiping right on a dating app, you're getting matched with the perfect bushel of basil.
Uh-huh. Exactly. And it's not just hiring either. AI can analyze those sales trends, figure out how consumer demand might shift, even optimize the pricing so there's less waste,
Wow.
which are all super important parts of a fruit and vegetable shop manager's job.
That's incredible. It's like having a crystal ball to tell you exactly how many mangoes to order each week so none go bad. But what about those soft skills we were talking about before, like the customer interactions, being a good leader to the team? Can AI really do all that too?
That's the question, isn't it? I mean, AI can definitely make things more efficient and offer up useful information,
Right.
but those human elements, those will always be essential in this line of work.
Hmm.
There's a certain art to knowing your customers, figuring out what they need, and creating that welcoming environment that makes them want to come back.
Yeah, like that feeling when the person at the counter remembers what kind of apple you like or suggests a new recipe.
Exactly. You can't get that from an algorithm.
No, you can't.
And, just like AI is changing how managers find and manage their teams,
Right.
it's also changing how people search for jobs. RoleCatcher talks about how their platform can help you, fix up your resume, get better at job interviews, even find new career paths that you might never have even thought about.
So even with more automation, it seems like technology can actually make those human connections even stronger, not get rid of them.
Exactly. It's about finding that balance, using the efficiency and data from AI, but holding on to those human interactions that are so important in this field.
And speaking of important, that pros and cons section in RoleCatcher's overview really shows both sides of this career.
Right.
Anything in particular stand out to you?
One of the pros that really stuck with me was the opportunity to work with fresh, healthy produce. It reminds you that this job is more than just numbers and logistics.
Mm.
It's about connecting people with good, wholesome food.
So easy to forget that when you're thinking about inventory and sales targets all day, but you're providing something really essential, fresh, healthy ingredients.
Absolutely. And as for cons, the one that got me was dealing with perishable items that require careful monitoring and maintenance.
Seems straightforward, but what's the challenge there?
Well, it shows how much responsibility these managers have. It's not just about keeping track of inventory. It's about constantly trying to reduce food waste every single day.
Right.
The decisions they make don't just impact their profits, but also the environment.
It's true. It adds a whole other layer of complexity. It's like they're conducting an orchestra of freshness, creating the symphony of flavor, but also trying to be mindful of their impact.
Exactly. And that requires a really unique combination of skills, passion, and awareness.
So to anyone listening who's ever appreciated a perfectly ripe mango or snagged the last bunch of organic kale,
Ah,
remember, there's a fruit and vegetable shop manager behind all those culinary triumphs. A manager dealing with suppliers, the changing seasons, and, like we talked about, increasingly complex technology.
and maybe even shaping the future of how we get our fresh food.
Now that's something to think about.
I'll say